morning on the topic of AI in LabVIEW, and it's the name of that tool is called Nigel, and we have him remoting in. So this is the first time I've ever done this. I don't know how it's going to go, but we will try and do the best we can. Austin, it's all yours.
Great. Thank you for the intro. My name is Austin Hill. I lead our software product management team here at NI. And so LabVIEW, TestStand, most all of our software, my team works with a bunch of customers like y'all and works with R&D to make sure we're doing the right things. So I'm going to give, hoping to give, I have the whole hour, right? Or do we have two topics? I think I have an hour. So I'm gonna assume I have an hour, and someone throw in the chat if that's incorrect. I'm hoping to have about 30 or 40 minutes of content. I want to show a demo of Nigel and then leave some time for questions at the end. But I have a couple of slides up front. I know probably not everyone here has used Nigel or seen it, or maybe even is interested in AI. Totally fine. I have some slides on what's new in LabVIEW as well. But let me give just a couple of slides on where we're going, what NI is thinking. We've gotten a lot of feedback recently as we've reinvested in LabVIEW. And so just want to show kind of our strategy. So can you all hear me? Or is there an echo? Am I echoing?
You keep flipping out. I don't know if you can hear us, but just having a little bit of intermittent audio issues.
Okay. I have a lot of jobs to do, make me go faster, make that easier. And then building community, which is why I'm here, where we are reinvigorating our user community, our ecosystem, and which is really critical for success. So I don't want to spend too much time on kind of high-level slides, but I want to show this is a LabVIEW user group. We're going to talk a lot about LabVIEW. I love LabVIEW. I'm a LabVIEW architect. But there is a ton of NI software out there that my team is investing in and working on, from LabVIEW to some of our application-specific software like FlexLogger or VeriStand, and then some of our data analytics and product analytics software like Diadem or SystemLink. And so across those, we're trying to invest in these key areas, things like simplifying and streamlining your measurements. I want to take data faster, easier, with fewer clicks. How do I do that quickly? I work on a team, and we need to be able to do CI/CD and tooling and pipelines. We need to do code reviews. How do we integrate with source code control? What about open source? There's a lot of pieces there that Lab can get better at. We want to improve our system integrations. That's things like making sure if you write a library in C#, .NET, or in Python, LabVIEW can use that easily, and then you could deploy out to Linux systems on TestStand, on VeriStand, on LabVIEW as well. The big one, though, like we mentioned at the top, is AI. AI is everywhere. Where is it going? How will it change the face of software engineering and test? And so with that, we will spend a lot of time today on Nigel. What is Nigel, and where is it coming to the industry? How are these AI-powered tools accelerating your workflow in TestStand, in LabVIEW and TestStand? But doing all this with a secured mindset. I'm sure some of you follow the world of AI. My LinkedIn is all over it. And if you've heard about OpenClaw, this new AI platform tool, had a huge, now my video is like, okay, had a huge security breach over the past couple of weeks. It was this incredible thing. Elon Musk tweeted about it. 10 million agents talking to each other in AI world. And surprise, surprise, it was developed really quickly with a bunch of AI, and it was a huge security risk. So we know we cannot allow that in tests, especially in defense and a lot of our government and semiconductor customers. And so we want to go as fast as we can. We want to make our customers more successful, but we have to do it in a secure, reliable, safe way. And so that's one of the big principles we have. Okay, what does this mean though? That's my high level. What does this mean for LabVIEW? Here are about 10 different investment areas that we continue to work on in the LabVIEW world. Like I mentioned, security is a big one. How do we create software bill of materials? How do we understand third-party dependencies, comply with government regulations? I'm going to turn my camera off for a second because I think that also might be a problem. Comply with government regulations at scale across different countries. Security is critical for us. A lot of our effort around LabVIEW this year is going to making more secure and rooting out any vulnerabilities. We're working on AI-powered workflows. I'll talk a lot about Nigel. I mentioned DevOps tools and CI/CD, containerizing things, and improving our Git workflows. If you have a big team working on a LabVIEW project all at once, we are making it clearer and more modern. There's a lot of other things over here. I'm not going to read every single one. I also want to call out we've done things recently around the LabVIEW editor itself, the UX, some of the ways we actually can find, navigate menus, do debugging, and I'll show some of those pieces as well. Okay, and then the other piece I want to just hit on real quick because I'm excited about it. Many of you know Eli Carey in the LabVIEW world. Eli is our director of software community, and his whole goal is to improve how our community exists and works together through open source, through collaborating on roadmaps, training, user groups, and we have reignited our user groups. COVID was a big challenge, and our investment around LabVIEW in the community waned over several years, but now we're back better than ever. We are at a LabVIEW user group right now. Here's our little star around over Huntsville, I hope. And we're really excited about kind of this engagement. So if you have friends, colleagues, other LabVIEW users in different parts of the world, different companies, invite them to a user group. There's probably one nearby. If there's not one nearby, we want to help them start one. So just keep evangelizing how we reignite our user groups, and also how we reignite universities teaching LabVIEW. We hear all the time that I can't hire LabVIEW developers. I can't find them. I have to teach them. And so we're trying to re-engage with universities. Our academic team is re-exploring how we do hands-on, how we get more universities to teach engineers LabVIEW, so that when you go to hire test engineers, validation engineers, flight controls engineers, they are ready to go. They already have the tools you need. Okay, so that's the big strategy. Let's talk about what's new. So LabVIEW 2026, LabVIEW Plus 2026 just released 2 weeks ago. It's really exciting. We'll talk all about Nigel. The big headline is Nigel has started to write LabVIEW code. And so if you saw anything about Nigel last year, we released it in July, and it could read LabVIEW code. It could give you guidance on tests. But now Nigel is actually starting to drop nodes on your block diagram, and I'll show you an example of that or two here in a little bit. Other things Nigel knows about your local hardware systems, I'll give a demo of that as well. And then Nigel also is integrated into TestStand, and so there's improvements in TestStand overall. LabVIEW specifically, there's greater awareness of your LabVIEW projects within Nigel, and then a few other cool things we've come out with recently. Better debugging workflows. I'll show a couple of those on how you can do VI comparison, how you set name breakpoints, and then ID exchange topic. So we've gotten a lot of customer feedback from the ID exchange. We've introduced a new web browser front panel control, support for Windows-based Docker containers. There's lots of little things. LabVIEW, as mature as it is, there's always more the community is asking for improvements to make their life easier, and I'll highlight a couple of those. So let me jump into a few of the LabVIEW things, and we'll get to Nigel here in about 5-10 minutes. So if you're just waiting for AI, which come in. If you're not interested in AI, then this is the part of the show to perk up on. So with editor improvements, we really want to be focusing on how to make it easy to use, how to debug, write code, share code in LabVIEW within your teams. And so in the 2025 Q3 release, we introduced a new window called the debug window, which combines your probes and your breakpoints into one window. We know that if you have lots of VIs open and projects, you can have a lot of windows. You might need 3 or 4 screens. And so we're trying to make that easier. The debug window is listing all of your probes and breakpoints in memory. And it will also allow you can enable showing values on the wire. So as you debug, as you run a VI, it is actually going to see, this is a GIF, okay, good. You can see the blue, I hope this GIF runs. Yes, the blue text is actually the value on the error wire, on that path control as it flows through your diagram. And then in the debug window as well, you can rename your specific probes and breakpoints. So there's a lot of updates here in the debug workflow, both with probes and breakpoints, on how you can find the data that's working, not working, catch errors. You can export your data to a clipboard so you can post into Notepad or some other document. Anyways, there's lots of updates to the edit, debug, probe, and breakpoint workflow. Also, in the most recent release of LabVIEW, if you are using a source code control tool like Git, in the past, when you drop a probe or a breakpoint, Git recognizes that as a change to your LabVIEW code, even if you're just debugging. We've separated those with the LabVIEW 2026 Q1 release. So you can do probes and breakpoints, and Git, your source code control, does not recognize that as an edit. And so it's not prompting you to remerge or resave your files after you change breakpoints and probes. Okay, so that's more debugging. That's exciting. I also mentioned collaborative development. One big source of feedback we've heard is as teams get bigger, LabVIEW works really great until you get to like 5+ developers, and then it gets harder. How do we make sure we're on the same version? How do we make sure we're taking advantage of new features, committing code, reviewing code with modern software engineering? And so a big thing, this is not new in the most recent version of LabVIEW, but we love to talk about it. We want you to be able to use the latest and greatest LabVIEW to edit your VIs. And so all of the features I'm talking about today, you might say, Austin, I'm not on LabVIEW 2025 or 2026. We're stuck on 2021. Totally fair. Tons of customers are like that. Even specific projects are trapped in one version. Starting in, I believe it was 2024 Q3, maybe it's 2024 Q1, you can actually pick what version of your project you're saving in while being in the latest version of LabVIEW. So this is different than the old save for previous button, which used to be kind of clunky and you would lose code. You can actually set it on a per project level, and you can pick what editor version you want. And then on your block diagram, it actually shows you what version you're in. So if you want to use Zoom or Diff or Nigel, you can move to a newest version of LabVIEW and leave your block diagram in, or your code in the same old version. A couple other things that are new from a team perspective. Our diff tooling has gotten better. So if you want to diff 2 VIs, it's kind of a pain right now to open them in separate LabVIEW instances and do a compare. There's a built-in diff tool in LabVIEW. If you haven't used it yet, it will show you the changes between VI A and VI B. It shows you cosmetic changes, block diagram, front panel, any attributes in your VIs. This makes it a lot easier to understand what's changing and then create a report. We support creating HTML, XML, plain text, and Microsoft Word reports based on all the changes. This is great if you're doing a code review or attaching this to a PR. You can actually create a report and then attach it to your PR and Git or wherever it is. And here's what the report actually looks like. Here's all the block diagram changes. Here's what's new, etc. Okay, that is my first 15 minutes on. There's a lot coming in LabVIEW, a lot exciting happening. Oh, well, I'll comment on one other thing. We support .NET Core now. If you're a big C# house or .NET house and LabVIEW, or you have a different team running .NET, you can now integrate .NET Core assemblies. You can build applications, PPLs, methods, properties, all those different functions. Those are now supported in LabVIEW as well. So lots coming in LabVIEW, still more to come. I'll show you a roadmap here in a few minutes. But I'm going to pivot us into Nigel. So like I mentioned at the top, integrating AI into our software stack is a big thing in the industry. We have done it a little bit different. We have not built a whole new tool. We have not built our own model. We have built an extension of LabVIEW, which we're calling Nigel AI. So one philosophy we have, I'll give a little bit of philosophy before I show the tool, is test and measurement is an interesting animal that is different than pure software development. If you go on the internet, if you read the news, everyone is talking about Claude Code can write 50,000 lines of code with me a day. That's great. However, we think there's a lot more you do in test than is just writing LabVIEW. I love writing LabVIEW. I hope you do too. That's why you're here at the LabVIEW user group. But a lot of what you're doing is understanding requirements, understanding if you've already written that piece of code. We already have a module that talks to that specific DUT. Analyzing our data, understanding what's coming in and out, where are the failures, doing macro analysis. We have a bunch of different tools that do that. And so when we set out to build an AI tool, we did not set out to build the best and greatest LLM that can write LabVIEW code. That was not our intent. Our intent was write an AI tool that does test really, really well. And it's going to help you across all these different domains, these different parts of your job, from converting that Excel sheet, which made with a bunch of requirements from the design team, into actual test plans. It's going to help you find test escapes and eliminate those, understand issues with your test systems. But we've really set out to build a test-specific AI tool. And how we've done that, making sure my slides are still ticking. There we go. How we've done that is we've built on top of OpenAI models. So a question we get a lot is, okay, this is interesting, but why didn't, what's better? Why should I use Nigel over ChatGPT or Claude? Which is a great question. And the answer is those AI models and AI assistants are generic. They are jack of all trades, but masters of none. And they're better at some things than others. You can create funny videos or images. Maybe you can create your own workout plan or grocery list. We've scrapped a bunch of that, and we've honed and targeted Nigel at test and measurement. And we've used NI's 50 years of IP, knowledge, best practices, domain expertise, all of these things that NI has done for 50 years. And we've curated the knowledge base, the prompts, all of the magic secret sauce of these AIs, and we've layered it on top of OpenAI. So we have not built our own model. We have not built our own Azure platform. We said OpenAI is already really good at this. GPT is changing the world. Let's use their large language model. We don't want to go build a $100 billion data center. Let's use their large language model and add test and measurement knowledge on top of it to make a really slick AI tool. So Nigel is this test optimized AI. You can see it typing on the right in this GIF, which can understand your LabVIEW code, give you best practices, design expertise, and also teach new users. One of our guiding principles around Nigel is, if it's hard to learn these tools, they have a big barrier of entry. AI can help accelerate that. For me, I'm a LabVIEW. I've been using LabVIEW for 15 years. I love LabVIEW. I'm a LabVIEW architect. That's why I joined NI. I'm not good at TestStand. Actually, about a year and a half ago, I had opened TestStand less than 5 times. My camera is not going to work here today. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm not that pretty. Yeah, y'all know what I look like. So I'm actually not an experienced TestStand user, but Nigel has actually helped me learn about TestStand, where to use it, what the properties I need are, and is a really good onboarding tool for our customers. Another big differentiator for Nigel versus off-the-shelf LLMs is that Nigel is integrated into our products. It's in LabVIEW, it's in TestStand. So instead of asking questions generically to this chatbot, you can actually go into the LabVIEW search bar and look with natural language, search for actual LabVIEW functions, examples, and primitives using natural language right in LabVIEW. And so it can drop it right on the block diagram, open help, find documentation on it. It's doing all this because of the integration directly into the product. So that was our initial kind of what is Nigel doing. So Nigel is this AI advisor that helps you learn LabVIEW faster, develop code, review code. We just released 2026 Q1, like I mentioned. And so the big changes, Nigel, like I said, it can now write LabVIEW code. It can understand your hardware and understand your projects and test sequences. So what that looks like in practice. So within a block diagram, and I'll show a deeper example of this, when you invoke Nigel's code completion capabilities, it's going to take in the context of your VI, documentation, your comments, notes, nodes, properties, all of that, and send that data to the LLM and give you a few different options that you might want to drop down onto your block diagram. So you can see in this GIF, you wire it up here, Nigel thinks for a few seconds, and then you can sift through the different answers and hit apply. Other things Nigel will do, Nigel offers hardware insights. So if you have hardware connected to your system, you can ask Nigel, do I have the right hardware to do X, Y, or Z testing? What hardware do I need? What are the limits? What is the function, the specs of that? And so it gives you some deeper analysis. The other thing Nigel is really good at is actually reviewing code. So if I'm sure all of us have gotten a piece of code from a customer, a partner, a colleague, or you found it after someone left the company. What is this piece of LabVIEW doing? If you didn't write it, sometimes it's hard to determine. Nigel can actually read the LabVIEW code, it's interpreting the block diagram, and give you some description of what's happening. This is also a great way to write documentation. You can have the LLMs summarize what's happening in your LabVIEW code and add that to your documentation. It does this in TestStand as well. You can ask TestStand Nigel questions about your TestStand sequences, and it will give you similar documentation understanding of what's going on in the TestStand sequence. Okay, I'm going to do a couple FAQs. Sorry, this is taking a second to load. Let this load and sit here for a sec. We get a lot of questions around Nigel. If this is your first time seeing it, I'm sure you're thinking some of these things. So let me go through a few of them before I actually show the demo to keep you in the loop. Is Nigel secure? The number one question we get is around security. And understandably, there's a lot of questions that we don't want people taking our data, stealing our data, looking at it. Nigel is built on an Emerson cloud SaaS platform that meets a very set of rigorous and robust security standards. We're SOC type 2 compliant. All of our data is encrypted over TLS or MTLS web standard transport layer security. And then there are specific guarantees that we have and Microsoft has to OpenAI that we are not storing your data, training on it, using it, accessing it, looking at it, any of that stuff. All of your prompts you type in or your VIs, they are stored locally on your machine, but they are not at all stored on our servers anywhere we have access. The moment it comes up to the LLM and is processed, when it comes back down to your machine, all of it is wiped off of our servers and we do not have access to it. Unless you specifically send us feedback and say, this prompt was bad, that's the only time we are getting your data onto our servers. Is Nigel accurate? Yes, but it is an AI, it's an LLM, and so it's not always perfect. I'm sure if we ask it enough questions, it gets it wrong every now and We think it's a lot more accurate about test than other AIs are. But it's not perfect, so always check your answers. Click on the links Nigel provides to verify its work, to validate its data. And then a couple other questions we get. Can I use another hosting platform or opening or model if you want to be on AWS or Claude or DeepSeek? That isn't available yet, but it's coming. We're working on how do we actually support other models. And then if English is not your first language, we have seen a ton of good usage around LLMs in other languages. I talk to Nigel sometimes in Spanish or German, and it does really well with that. So if you have multinational teams, global teams, Nigel works well across borders. How do you get Nigel? If you have a current copy of LabVIEW or TestStand, so you need to be on LabVIEW 2025 Q3 or 2026 Q1, same with TestStand. And if you're in LabVIEW Pro or TestStand Development, or you have one of our suites or EAs, you already have access. There's no additional cost. There's no additional part number. It comes with LabVIEW Professional and Test and Development System, as long as you're on the newer versions of them. All you have to do is make sure that your serial number is associated with your ni.com user account, because it will ask you to log in. It has a multi-factor authentication to keep making sure you're secure and no one else is using your Nigel or your credits, and you can use it. So I'm going to stop sharing here and switch to my other machine if I can. I have two laptops, one for being a product manager and one for doing real engineering work in LabVIEW. Let's see, add this device. Okay, can y'all still hear me? I hope. And then let's share my screen. Okay, good. Hopefully you can see my LabVIEW 2026 Q1 screen. And I will show you what this looks like. So first in Nigel, you can get to it a few different ways. If you open up a new VI, oh, whoops, that's not what I meant to do. There is this Nigel icon logo up in the right-hand corner of both your front panel and your block diagram. So you open the Nigel chat window. And this is my last chat. I'll start a new chat up here. Howdy, I want to learn about stack programming. So Nigel, really good resource for newer users around how to use our software, basic concepts, understanding what you might need to know. So what is DAC? Tell me about what software APIs, what things might I measure? Hey, and I offer as a training course. If you haven't seen this one, here's some concepts here. Hey, look, there's a CDAC. And then if you want to learn more, here's sensor fundamentals that'll open it up in, so lots of resources. Like I said, check your resources, check your work. Then if I ask, what hardware do I have in my system that can do TTL, digital communication? So Nigel will now go, this is a new in 2026 Q1, it'll actually go look in Macs or hardware configuration. Here's the things I have in my system. I have some simulated hardware. It's also like, hey, you want TTL digital logic? Okay, I see you have a 6363. That's good, it has 48 DIOs. You have an FGen and 2 scopes, probably not a good option. So it doesn't just say, yeah, you have an hardware, everything is great. I also have a USB 6421 attached here that supports digital I/O. And here's what you might need to know. Here's some high-speed lines. It's MPXI. There's a USB connection here. Both support TTL, can do handshaking, pattern generation. You should use DECMX. And then it says, hey, would you like example code? Yeah. So again, new projects, new users, new to LabVIEW or new to test. Nigel's a really great buddy to sit on the side of your desk and help you find more information. So it's like, he says, hey, here's actually how do you go to the example finder. Okay, so let's follow these steps. Open LabVIEW, check, help, find examples. Great. Expand hardware I/O, DACMX, digital I/O. And then try digital finite output. Okay, great. Let's try that. And then I should select what I'm on. How about PXI slot 1 or PXI 1 slot 4 line 4? Let's run this. Amazing. I sent out a digital pulse train using PFI 0 as my clock source. Awesome. Maybe I'll set a time start. So as you can see, easy way to find examples, and then I can go back to Nigel and say, okay, cool. I opened that example. Can you walk me through it? And then, so Nigel is really giving you the ins and outs of how to do test, what's going on here. Here are the different channels, sample clock source. What is this thing? How does this work? You know, you go to the block diagram, it tells you, here's what's going on in the block diagram. So that's all Nigel helping you, advising you, being kind of the smartest guy in the room when it comes to test. The other interesting thing is to talk about, I showed you the hardware piece. The other one we're talking about is code generation. So I'll show you one real quick. This is a little bit trivial, but let's assume I'm writing some code. I'll just modify this example. If I just delete all of this at the end, and I say, okay, Nigel, I've read, I've started, I started the task, I read the digital waveform. Now what do I do? So if you wire from this task out up into the Nigel symbol here, oops, that wire is conveniently located right on top of Nigel. Okay, so Nigel, I'll say, hey, what else should I do in this example? What else should I do in my code? This is especially good for users who know what they want to accomplish, but don't know exactly how to accomplish it in LabVIEW. And so, let's see how long it takes to, my internet connection's not great here. This is also a larger VI, so Nigel's packaging up all of the backend XML and sending up to LLM. Okay, so it says, it looks like you already did an acquisition. This VI is called digital finite input. So Nigel is taking not only the context of all of our nodes, but also things like the name of the VI, the comments on the block diagram, the properties. And so it says, well, it looks like you've already done a digital finite input and your timing settings indicate finite samples. So it's time to stop the task. Sounds good. And then I'll drop it right on there. I'll wire this up here. And then I can do it again. It's okay, well, I stopped the task. Now what should I do? And then Nigel will hopefully tell me to clear my DACMX task or close my task. And then it might tell me to handle my errors. And so Nigel, this is a way, you know, it's not generating entire VIs from scratch, but giving you the tools to, you know, step through a VI. What's the next logical step? Okay, add DACMX to your class task after stop to release your resources. That makes sense. Nigel also has given me 3 options. What else can I do? I could, oh, it actually says, no, I haven't given you 3 options. There's one thing you should do. Oh, there's one thing you should do is this one, or if query DACMX task, making sure it's done. So before you clear it, before you close it, I just want to make sure that you've made sure it's done. Let's apply that. And then let's try one more time. And hopefully it'll tell me to use DACMX clear task once we're sure we're done. If you're using a new piece of hardware, a new API you're not familiar with, maybe you just got something from IDNet or you're starting a new project, this is a great way through code completion. Oh no. Gotta love, I think I'm still on a pre-release version of software. I should really update to the shipping version. But luckily, if Nigel gets back a bad piece of VI, it won't try to paste it on your machine. It'll throw a warning and say, there we go. DACMX cleanup, love that. Let's drop that down, good to go. So that's Nigel with a more kind of a larger example of what's going on. Let me actually open a new VI. Another option is Nigel with some prompting can generate thoughts or new VIs from scratch. Now, Nigel is only good enough as that what you give it. So if you just, if I just give it an empty numeric and say, write me code, Nigel has no idea what I'm asking for. It's a pretty small piece of code. It's sitting in the LLM, but it says, would you like to format the string? Maybe you want to, hey, maybe you want to compute a square. I'll drop this in. Or maybe you want to turn this time into a timestamp. I don't know. Here are my options. Okay, well, that's interesting. Okay, let's actually delete that though. I'm going to rename this. Oh man, I got rid of the label. I'm going to call this radius. And I'm going to call this area. I'm going to tell Nigel, compute the area of a circle. So now when I wire, Nigel should be able to interpret that comment I just wrote, the labels of my diagram objects, and then think about how to do that and throw it in here. And there we go, pi r squared. Nigel found the pi constant from the numerics palette, found the squared, found the x, and said, hey, if you're looking at compute an area of a circle, here's the formula, here's how I'm going to do it. That's great. It also, hey, if you don't want to use the squared function, okay, you can use the multiply function times itself. Here's just a different way to do it. If you didn't know there was a squared primitive, I'm going to use that. If I drop another node here, again, this is a little trivial. We all know probably how to do geometry. But if you didn't know how to go do these things in LabVIEW, this is really helping you get to that spot to go learn how to do something if you know what you want to do, complete bridging that gap. So I said, what now? Oh, I already have this pi thing. I can now also do 2 pi r. Now, note, it says it's doing 2 pi and giving me the x multiply. It's not finishing off the existing radius, so then I would actually have to come in here and wire here, and there we go. Now I have area and circumference of a circle. Ooh, that's, oh, I'm dumb. Of course, it's the same because I put 2 as my radius. So there you go. So this is really showing, you know, as you are building new projects, especially newer engineers, figuring out what functions LabVIEW has. Maybe let's ask, can you, I want to, not can you, I want to graph the outputs over R equals 1 to 100. I haven't done this. This is the fun thing about Nigel is when I demo it live, anything can happen. So we'll see. Okay, to prepare a graph, you might want to make an array. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, we got to get all of our arrays together in order to log it. Okay. Or you might want to compute a diameter, or maybe you want to format it. So then it's like, oh, actually, yes, I want to build an array. That sounds good. Then what should I do? Hopefully, if I asked Nigel in the chat, it would probably give me a better answer, but this is just going off of, yeah, build array and then tell me how big it is because we're going to need to loop. Great, that's a great idea. So actually, if I go back to Nigel and said, to graph a series of areas based on 100 radii, how should I do this? So then Nigel should tell me like, oh, well, you're going to actually need to create all the radii, calculate all the areas, and graph your results. Here's where you want to do it. Make sure you index all of your arrays appropriately, graph a curve, etc. So, okay, that is my short version of what's new in Nigel, what's new in LabVIEW. If you want, I have a few more minutes. Any questions for me and or anything you want to ask Nigel? It's kind of fun. If you're curious what Nigel can do, we can start a new chat and ask Nigel questions.
Austin.
Yeah.
Austin.
Yes.
May I interrupt you?
Yeah.
I want to make up for where I let go of something a while ago. I wanted to thank Rich for bringing pizza today. Thank you, and I for lunch. I kind of feel like we owe a round of apology, not to Austin, but to Nigel. Nigel seems to be quite the tool. I wonder if the best way to ask questions is for people to come up to the front and unmute the mic, ask the question and mute the mic again so that we don't clip his responses. Are y'all okay with that? So if you want to ask Nigel, would you come up here, unmute the mic, ask your question, stay long enough to make sure your question gets answered, and then mute the mic again. Not everybody all at once.
Also, if you have questions online, feel free to throw them in the chat or unmute.
While people are thinking of questions, I'm going to ask one. And the question I have has to do with data acquisition. Two parts. One is, does Nigel help pick hardware that is not part of an existing system? If I'm trying to determine what hardware I need, you may have addressed that earlier and I missed it. But the other part is, does Nigel suggest, you had it do the ending part. Is it helpful in selecting the data acquisition methods?
Yeah, so I'll ask a quick question to hopefully give a kind of a representative example. So, hey, I'm an automotive. I have a big battery pack. I drive an electric vehicle. It's 800 volts. Can I test that? Do I have any hardware? So Nigel will go pull your hardware and go, you got this, that. And then Nigel says, well, no, you would need some high voltage probe or attenuator. These are designed for plus or minus 10. So actually, no, you would need some specialized probe. Then, safety note, do not connect your standard dechroscope directly at 800 volts. You need isolation, you need protection. If I want to do that, okay, so maybe I'll give it a different example. How about a different example? I want to measure strain with a quarter bridge. What hardware should I use for that? So Nigel will give me potential options. It'll look at my hardware. It'll say, maybe you need external completion. What if I want a different, if you want a more streamlined solution, you could get a module specifically designed for strain, the 9237. Tell me more about the 9237. And so Nigel will say, you have some hardware here that might do the job, but actually the 9237 is specifically designed for strain and bridge, for quarter, half, and full bridge. Here are the options, channels, voltage, bits, etc. Here's a pinout of how you want to use it, the different signal types. And then if you actually want to go see it, here's terminal block. Here's the user manual for that terminal block. There's that. And here's the quarter bridge connection guide. That sounds interesting. With my 9237, awesome. So yes, the short answer to your question is, if you don't have the hardware in the system, Nigel can help you find hardware. Question we get a lot is, does it recommend other hardware? Is it just an I? I want to buy a Keysight Strain module. Which one should I buy? Nigel is trained to not really take a side here. It is going to be diplomatic and say, I don't know about Keysight. I'm focused on an I. However, it's not going to tell you you shouldn't buy Keysight module. It'll say, if you're looking at that, here are some things you should know about. Excitation, sampling rate, etc. Question in the chat. Does Nigel work with simulated DAC hardware? Yes, the answer is yes. All of the hardware I've showed up in my system up here, it doesn't say it, but yes, all of this hardware is simulated. It's not, I have nothing connected to my system. So as long as it's in hardware config utility, if it's in hardware config utility, that's what Nigel's looking at. And so it's like, I see you have a simulated device. This is what I'm referencing. Another question in the room. I think y'all are muted for a sec. You can see here's all my simulated hardware. And so that's what Nigel is referencing in its response here. Other questions, other comments?
Hey, yes, I have a question. So most of the people in this room are military contractors.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, the work we do with NI is all offline. Is there any plans to enable us to be able to use this either like standalone or through like military approved currently offered AI options?
Yes, 100%. We are working on that. Great question. Also a very common question. Two paths we're looking at. The first one is around, so keeping with our cloud hosting. Right now, Nigel's hosted in the cloud and goes and talks to Azure OpenAI. Our first objective is to get a way to deploy Nigel on an internal cloud hosted solution. So if you have like a FedRAMP certified Azure government hosted solution internally, maybe you use that for other tooling. We are working with several defense contractors to get Nigel certified to be used in their cloud hosted environments. I know this wouldn't work for things like disconnected systems, classified data can't go in those, of course, but for places that have a little bit, not as stringent security requirements, a cloud hosted solution for Azure government is on our roadmap. And then a little further out, can we get Azure to work on a smaller, like a local model or an on-prem solution? We have been asked if I can, within my intranet at our site, if I host a server there, it's only inside the firewall on the intranet on our test floor. We could also host Nigel there. That's a little bit further out, but the first thing we're working on is you could deploy. I'll pick a UK company to the British Ministry of Defense. They have an Azure client that's internal to them behind their firewall. That's where we're looking to deploy Nigel to first. And that should be coming out this year. Okay, I know we're running out of time. I'm actually going to stop sharing real quick and come back over to this screen. I do want to show you where we're going, what's next, if you're curious. I hit present. Okay, so for the Nigel roadmap, Nigel exists in LabVIEW and TestStand in 2025. Great. We just released in 2026 Q1 2 weeks ago this project awareness, the generating LabVIEW code, which I showed, the contextual awareness of your local test system. That would be that's the hardware information. And then, like I mentioned, cloud service with Azure OpenAI is 2025. We're looking at customer Azure cloud hosting and Azure government support. We expect those to come out here in 2026. And then model independence as well. If your company approves Claude versus DeepSeek versus Quinn versus what have you, you would be able to use those. Nigel would be able to pick a model that works for you. Other things we're working on, we expect Nigel to be across all of the rest of our LabVIEW Plus suite by the end of the year, with the exception of Diadem. So if you're a FlexLogger user or Veristand or SystemLink as well, or if you know other labs that are using those tools, Nigel will be integrated into those products here in a few months, hoping in the summer timeframe. And then the next thing Nigel's working on is generating LabVIEW code, not from the block diagram, but from the chat window. Just tell Nigel, write me this LabVIEW code, producer consumer loop, DAC-MX channels, and Nigel can write that from there, as well as TestStand sequences. If you're a TestStand user, Nigel is being trained on TestStand, and by the summertime, we'll be able to create TestStand sequences from scratch as well. And then a lot more, we're working on data, trying to get to a place where Nigel can read your test data if you're saving it locally, if you're saving it in SystemLink, visualize that, provide insights, and do kind of correlation with test data as well. Okay, that was my second to last slide. My last slide is, if you want to see any more of this after I'm gone, all of our software roadmaps are published on ni.com. My team is very excited about this. We update these at least once a quarter to keep you in the loop on what we're investing in. There's a Nigel roadmap up there, LabVIEW, TestStand, all the products you see here. You can scan this QR code, or you can, what I do is Google search NI software roadmaps, and they should pop right up. There's a place to leave feedback on the idea exchange that we check. So if you see something on the roadmap that you're interested in, have questions on, definitely feel free to email me, austin.hill@ni.com, and I'll connect you to the right person to answer questions on that. But we want your feedback. We want to know that the things we're building are what you're looking for. And if there's something you don't see on our roadmaps, please let us know to make sure we're building what you need. Okay, 60 seconds left. Any last questions? Anything else I can answer? Great.
Austin, I am not sure if it's because of the guys got full from the pizza, or if it is that they got all their questions answered from your talk, but in either case, everyone looks very satisfied.
Great.
So
That's what I like to hear. Venkat, I will respond in the chat to your question about CACD. I have some good links on that. Otherwise, really appreciate the time. Thank you all for taking the day to learn about what's new in LabVIEW. Stay tuned to our LinkedIn page. Come to NI Connect and hear about all of these things in person. Like you can see, our roadmap is really full. I'm really pumped about this year and where we're going. So stick around, and hopefully I'll be talking to you all soon.
very good. Thank you, Austin, very much for taking time out of your day. Very much appreciate your overview.
Happy to do it.
All right.
Thanks, y'all. See ya.
Thank you. Get you all signed up. I might enjoy going to Brussels.
It's awful close to Oktoberfest. You may have to see and stay.
Very good. Thank you, Rich, again for the pizza. We are working for the month of March to have a meeting again on the 18th.